when a man jumped in to save a baby. Elephant from drowning the other. Elephants did something. Surprising, it was the end of a rescue. That no one thought would happen. The tires made loud noises and slipped side to side on the dusty road. Ethan Morrow, sitting in his Jeep, looked ahead and saw something scary. 3 huge elephants were standing in the way and wouldn't move. Each one was over 7 tons, almost 3 times heavier than the car coming at them. If the car hit one, Ethan would probably be badly hurt, or worse, the car used to be shiny and white, but now it was covered in mud. The elephant in front was also muddy from head to toe. Its legs were covered in dark mud, darker than its gray skin, like it was wearing socks. The mud stuck to its rough skin and filled the wrinkles on its body. These elephants had been in the mud for some time now, but they were not the ones who Ethan was concerned about. Ethan pressed his foot to the pedal, revving the engine of his truck and hoping to scare off the elephants. 2 of them stumbled back, but Ethan had to stop. Before colliding with them, he whipped into a 180 degrees, turned the grainy tires, splashing mud into the air, covering the elephants even more than they already were. This wasn't what he thought he would end up doing when he signed up to volunteer here over a decade ago, but since becoming a full-time worker, he'd learned that he needed to expect the unexpected. His instinct, imp pen sent for radical ideas, had taken him to the top of management, but he enjoyed getting his hands dirty and doing the jobs himself. At this moment, he needed to summon the skills of a rally car driver. From 200 feet away, Ethan gripped the wheel under his worn cowboy hat, revving the aging engine that rattled in protest. But as it kicked back into gear, the noise rumbled and echoed through the park. It captured the attention of the elephant herd, which was all encircled around the ly of a river. For the past half an hour, they had been scrambling to help a young member of its herd, which had fallen into the water. The soft, slippery soil wasn't giving enough to grip escape from, nor to hold on to. The elephant calf was bobbing around, but the situation was quickly becoming dangerous. They were all covered in mud now, but their attempts had so far been unsuccessful, wrapping their trunks around its body. None of the other elephants could get a firm hold on the calf. Worse than trying to help the small elephant, its family had inadvertently sent it deeper into the water. Its movements were slowing as it ran out of energy, and it slipped closer to its death. The 4-month-old rolled its head upward, gasping for air. If it didn't get out of the water, soon it would drown. The elephant named Kbo was the newest member of the Ato Elephant National Park, a famous wildlife center in Botswana. At this park, elephants were protected from hunters, but Ethan, who helped manage the park, was always dealing with problems. He was trying to help more elephants survive while the area was running low on water. As the number of elephants kept growing, the need for resources was bigger than ever. This was why the herd had gathered along this riverbank, one of the few on this side of the park. Now there was an even more immediate crisis, with the life of Kbo hanging in the balance as rangers watched on at the near hopeless situation. They were bracing themselves for the first death in more than 3 decades. None of the rangers were able to reach the elephant calf while the herd was trying to help. Time was against them. That's when Ethan's radical idea came in. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. He would try to shepherd them away from the baby using his truck. Pulling them apart from the family was going to be a tough task, and one he had never imagined himself trying to do as a young vet. But with his entire team watching on and praying, Ethan felt even more inspired to lead them to victory, and took one last deep breath. The engine underneath him vibrated as he clicked the handbrake down and unleashed its power. After a brief wheel spin, the truck was once again cannoned toward the group. This time, he jerked the steering from side to side, fishtailing the truck, kicking up clouds of dust behind and making the object appear as big as possible. This grabbed the attention of the elders of the herd, who interrupted their rescue efforts to move out of the way it was working. The crowd was slowly moving away, and Ethan managed to park the truck in the middle to block off the baby elephant. He drove back a bit farther from the river. He did it twice to be sure, but that was only part of the job. Now he had to start the rescue. He called his team for help, jumped out of the truck as it stopped, and ran straight into the water. Another park ranger named Tarek joined him. It was his first week on the job, and his eyes were widened with terror. Tarek, a brilliant engineering graduate from a Zimbabwe village, had joined the park for experience. Torn between duty and passion, now Ethan was eyeing Tarek up as a valuable future member of the team. He had taken note of Tarek's initiative and intelligence, but also detected a deep conflict inside, so refrained from trying to persuade him too much. Sensing the urgency of the situation, Tarek followed Ethan into the water without hesitation. It would be easier to push the elephant than to pull it. Although just a baby, the elephant must have been over 200 pounds. A crane was on its way from a different side of the park, but it was rough terrain and wouldn't arrive for at least another half hour. They couldn't afford to wait that long. Ethan, coordinating with Tarek, counted to 3 with each push, resting the elephant on their lifted knees to rest in between. Now there was another danger. The truck diversion had only worked for so long. Looking up across the grass, Ethan could see the bigger elephants sauntering back over towards them, impatient to reunite with their lost member. He ordered 2 of the rangers to climb onto the back of the truck and hold the line. They were equipped with both a tranquilizer gun and a rifle, both of which they would point when the elephants approached closer. As a last resort, Ethan yelled at them to hold off. He trusted the elephants, and he also hoped they could finish the rescue quickly, but instead the rangers turned on a loud siren from a speaker on top of the car. The strange sound confused the elephants for a moment, giving them a bit more time, but it wasn't enough. The herd started moving toward them again, even faster, aiming their huge bodies and swinging trunks right at the truck that was blocking their way to Kbo. The rangers held on tighter and quickly looked to the side to see how Ethan and TH were doing. They started to think it was hopeless. Setting their scopes in front of their eyes, the rangers rested their index fingers on the triggers, waiting to fire. Meanwhile, the small elephant struggled to climb out of the water. After several failed attempts, it finally found its footing and was pulled to safety. For the calf, it had felt like an eternity when the park rangers had arrived moments earlier. It had just started to submerge under the water. Taking another glance up at the herd of elephants, Ethan estimated he had just enough time to check the vital signs of the baby. It was laying down on the grass, now catching its breath. While holding it in place, he checked its eyes, tongue, and heartbeat. Along with Tarek, he noticed that the baby's tongue had long white streaks. This meant one thing: dehydration. And if it were dizzy, that may explain how it had fallen in the water in the first place. Ethan knew the larger implications to the herd had been struggling to find water. This wasn't by chance. The park had an ongoing water shortage, and as part of a delicate ecosystem, recent heat waves had been debilitating, but that would have to be a problem for later. For now, they bolted back to the safety of the truck just in time to observe an emotional reunion where the calf's mother embraced a little one. It let out a cry, clearly emotional about the entire ordeal, and quickly checked Bo for injuries. Just as Ethan had, it gave the tick of approval before spraying it clean with water from its trunk. It even seemed to give a soft bop on the head as a reminder not to stray away from the herd again before drawing it close under its body. As the herd walked far away from the water together once again, this was a frustrated but relieved mother. A universal emotion. All in all, it was a successful day. Returning to the headquarters, most team members were proud of the job they had done, but Ethan and Trick didn't feel Like celebrating, they were very worried about how unhealthy the elephants looked. They could bring water to the elephants, but that would only help for a short time. They needed to find a bigger and better solution, and fast. The next day, Targ rode with Ethan, writing down everything they noticed. Now the young engineer was very focused on the problem and was trying hard to think of a way to fix it. He noticed that all of the elephants seemed to congregate in one small part of the park. They were putting too much demand on the water, and as a result, the vegetation was drying up. That meant the elephants were struggling to find food as well because the area wasn't growing as much. They had become too comfortable and were eating their habitat too excessively. Ethan's years of experience told him that it was going to be difficult to direct these animals anywhere. That's why it took a high-speed truck to move them away from their calf if this was their favorite place for eating. Then it would take a lot to stop them. Nervously, Tark proposed an idea, knowing that it might sound a little extreme. Ethan reassured him that nothing was out of the question. In fact, usually Ethan was known for his crazy ideas, so he was open to it. Tark proposed that they fit some fences which would be mildly electrified as a way of moving the elephants onto a different part of the park. Ethan hadn't thought about it before, but it seemed like a big step. He didn't like the idea of shocking the animals, but Tark told him the electricity was very weak, just enough to guide the herd away so the land could recover. And after seeing how weak the baby elephant was a few days earlier, Ethan realized this might be their only choice. Tar, who was a trained engineer, designed a fence and gave instructions to the workers, naturally becoming the leader, but he also helped build the fence himself, working in the mud and showing the others how to do it. Ethan watched on in admiration, and so did the elephants, who were curious about the new construction, not knowing what waited ahead for them. When finished, they waited with bated breath to see if Tarek's idea worked. The elephants were taken off guard by the shocks. After the first two elephants had been shocked, the mothers stopped their calves from running into it again. The word quickly spread, and they all recognized the need to adapt, slowly beginning to migrate to a different water hole, at last allowing the environment to recover. It gave more space and resources to other animals who shared the park with the elephants, which was going to be a huge help for all inhabitants of the park. And as another benefit, a wildlife specialist told them that introducing a small stress element into the environment could be good for elephant breeding. If elephants became too relaxed in their environment, then it was detrimental to population. Seeing the effectiveness, the rest of the park management took notice of TQ and asked him to install similar fences in different areas of the park, as well as to pitch them new ideas. They wanted to take him on full-time, offering him a job right below Ethan, but Tarek would have to think about it. This was a big decision. It all seemed to be successful soon, though things threatened to come back and bite them on a routine patrol. Ethan and Tarek were chatting about the past month and all the work they had done together. Ethan was trying to convince Tarek to accept the job, otherwise his contract would expire soon. Tarek was entirely convinced. Sure, he enjoyed the work, but he couldn't help wondering if there was anything else out there for him. That's when they spotted the herd again. This time they emerged, suddenly blocking the road off in an instant and forcing the truck to a stop. They weren't sure if the elephants would be hostile or not with their raw power. The truck could easily be flipped or crushed if they chose. The rangers and zookeepers across the world had been killed by elephants before, and the motives were not always clear. There was no doubt the elephants knew who had built the electric fences. Many of them had watched Tarek working out in the field. Now they stared down at his small body, which was partly protected by a glass panel, but still mostly exposed. Also, many of the elephants remembered when Ethan had blocked their path with the truck, keeping them away from their baby. Now, for the second time, the truck and the elephants stood face To face this was different though the herd walked together side by side towards them. Ethan turned the key, but the truck only coughed and stalled, refusing to start. Tarek was becoming increasingly worried. Only a year after his university graduation, he had never experienced anything like this, nor did he want to. The elephants were so close now that they blocked out the sunlight, casting a long shadow over the car. Ethan, too, was nervous. He jiggled the keys and tapped the gas pedal, but the truck didn't budge. He breathed slowly through his nose to maintain his composure, but he knew that there was no escape. All of a sudden, a bright noise filled the air. Tar ducked under the dashboard, looking for cover. While Ethan looked up with the whites of his eyes, the noise was followed by others imitating the same pitch, grouping together and creating a thicker, bolder sound. Creeping his head up hesitantly, Tarek brought his EY line slightly above the dashboard. Now he could see what they were doing. The elephants' trunks were pointed toward the sky, shooting air out and making a chorus of trumpet sounds. The sound was extraordinary, like being at the center of a horn section of an orchestra. These were not the noises of aggression Ethan and Tarek were being thanked for. Their actions. Even Kabo emerged at the front of the pack, joining in the trumpeting, those struggling to muster up much of a noise. Ethan burst into laughter, nudging Tarek's arm as the tension of the moment popped. Tarek couldn't help but smile too. As his terror subsided, together they watched on as the elephants walked in unison in a hypnotizing dance, sending a rare message to their human neighbors. If Tarek had needed any more convincing this was the right path for him, then here it was. They sat there for more than 10 minutes, watching the patient elephants walk around the truck, inspect and playfully touch the park rangers with their trunks. As they later walked off into the sunset, the engine kicked into gear. Ethan fastened his cowboy hat, and they took off back onto the dusty trail. At that moment, Tarek made his decision. This is what he wanted to do with his life. Did you enjoy the story? If you were in Tarek's shoes, would you have made the same choice? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you like the story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Even the smallest acts, when done with courage and heart, can change or even save a life. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video, and until then, have a fantastic day.